watching Leicester Till I Die TV.
Watch us on YouTube.
Listen on your favourite podcast platform.
Or ask your smart speaker
To play the podcast Leicester Till I Die.
Right, Chris.
I'm not Chris. Chris is in the background. He's checking out for an echo. Something about losing his gecko as well. But hello, how are we all doing? Are you all having a lovely evening? You are here, so you know what you're here for. It says right there, we're here for the preview show. We have our lovely guest joining us from Rovers Chat, Dom in the background just waiting. And better late than never, the wise old Al finally decided to show his face. But before we get started, if you are here and you're supporting this channel, then do make sure you go and check out all of our socials that are scrolling, well, not scrolling, but they are there across the bottom, all the way from YouTube to X to Facebook, to all the way to any podcast platform. So do make sure you're showing us all your love on there. Right, after that, let's get on with the show. As to say, we are here to preview the weekend's game against Blackburn. It is, as Chris said in the chat, and I'll just pop his comments up here, he did say it is a very good one. It's not big up Jesus. You can't say that to me, Chris. It's not that comment I need. It's this one. It's, of course, the first meeting of the ex-Premier League champions. We're doing battling in the Championship. Hopefully not for long. You know, as long as Blackburn don't beat us at the weekend, they can come up through the playoffs, I guess, and join us back in the Premier League. But without further ado, I will bring our guests in now because Craig is on the naughty step. He was late. He did tell me he brought a mother. He brought his note. He brought his note. He said, "This is my sick note." But Dom, welcome, Dom from Rovers Chat. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, thank you very much. That was a very impressive intro that you had there. Right there, it was more of like a massive jingle and then a radio station ending to it. So yeah, nice to be mentioned as an ex-champion, and hopefully, like you say, we'll sneak into the playoffs with you going up. But yeah, I'm great. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. Well, it's good. It's funny you say it sounded a bit jingly and radio-y because, funny enough, Chris is probably smiling like a Cheshire cat right now because he is currently a radio host of the morning breakfast show on Surrey Hills Radio. Shameless plug for you there, Chris. Don't think I leave you out just because you're in the background, mate. So yeah, I'm doing very well. Obviously, we're here talking. We're talking football. We're having both a fairly good start to the season, but before I get caught out cold, he's been in the naughty step long enough, Dom. We will talk about Blackburn Rovers and the start of the season, but it's time for me to bring in the wise old Al to the channel. Craig, you brought your sick note. You're late, but you're here just as we started. How the devil are you?
I'm good, thanks. Good to see you, Dom. Yeah, I think I've just taken the average age of the people on screen way past any number that's should be allowed on any TV channel. But hey, we're here, and
yeah, well,
it's good to
this channel. This channel always supports the elderly. We show we care for our community. Hi to Terry. Just quickly getting into the comments here. Pick up Jesus, the wide out, and I guess Dom from Chris, who's listening out for Craig's echo. Suspicious how he's sat inside, Chris. That's all I'm saying. You're welcome there, Chris, as well. Don't worry. And someone, obviously, a friend of yours here, Dom, saying, "Go on, Dom, fella," giving up the big up to the Blackburn Rovers crew. So we've had a fantastic start, but we'd be wasting Dom's time if we gushed on about our start to league, top of the league. This championship's easy, isn't it, Craig? It's just making it look easy.
Yes, let's. Yeah.
I love how you can
let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've got some tough games coming up, starting with this one at the weekend. That's for sure.
We do, and respect to the former Premier League champions ourselves. Dom, your start to the season, have you been? Is it what you expected? Are you doing even better than you expected, or are you maybe a little bit disappointed to not be, maybe top or second along with Leicester up there?
Yeah, if we're ever top or second, I think that we're flying high. I think we're probably expected to be in and around 6th to where we are now in 14th. 3 wins, 4 losses. Very open play is what you'll find out at the weekend. So you might win 5-0, or it could be a 3-3, or it could be there's going to be a lot of goals, essentially, is what I'm going to say. I'm pleased with how we are in terms of how young the squad is and how little we performed in the transfer market, how late we did them as well. So expectations are quite low right now. With a good manager, we were just hoping we could get back to a little bit more, and we are very much jealous of your spending in this championship transfer window.
Yeah, I mean, in comparison to others, we hold our hands up, don't we, Craig? We have been dubbed the Man City of this division, and that's probably not just because we've got Enzo as manager, but a big difference he made there in saying that it feels like Blackburn are having a last season to Leicester in a sense, because that spending late, panic transfer buys. I mean, Craig, it's different for us, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the transfer window was difficult for most teams, to be honest, particularly us, because we didn't know who was coming and who was going. There's a couple of signings who have not really hit the heights that we would hoped so far, but it's still early days. The frightening thing is, from having so many years in the Premier League, is when you play those first half a dozen games and then someone turns around and says, yes, but there's still 40 games to go, more than a whole Premier League season. So, it is a long drag. It's great to have a good start, and most of the players have been settling in pretty well. And obviously we've had a few who have come out of the cupboard who are performing pretty well for us as well at the minute.
Yes, we will get to them in the second half of the show when we go for a few. Because I got a few questions for you. I did warn you, Craig, this time I got a few questions for you now. But I mean, Dom, you talked about there you got some late signings through, and you very well explained what Leicester could be up against in terms of how open you're going to be, how free flowing you are as a team. I would say, looking at how we did that to Southampton, is that the biggest concern you have coming up against Leicester? I mean, the quality Leicester's got. I'm not trying to be big-headed or blue-tinted here, but a lot of people say you look at Leicester's bench should probably get top 6 in the Championship. Is it a concern for you that could be an area that you're getting honed in at? Because Leicester love a team that comes at them. We've seen that a lot this season already, that when teams seem to come at us, they get torn apart. Is that a concern for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not beat around the bush here. Leicester shouldn't be in the Championship in the first place. They're the best team to ever get relegated from the Premier League, unless Chelsea do it this season, of course. So by no means should Leicester even be in this league in the first place.
Oh, is he frozen on us there? Oh. Sorry. Yeah, you're back. It's all right. It's just a bit like this then.
Just give you a little insult and then left. That's it. So, yeah, it is a worry of mine that we're going to be so open. But I mean, you got to attack to win games, and you got to score goals to win games. So, if we're not going to spend money off the field, we might as well try on it. And our biggest strength is on the counter. So I think that if you nullify that, then you've got a massive chance of winning on Sunday. But if not, I mean, you're away at Ewood. I won't say it's a fortress, but we've not conceded many goals apart from against Sunderland. And fully back, because you've got a Premier League side there, so it's always a worry for any side that play against Leicester. And apologies if it cut out at any point. I'm on my phone Wi-Fi, so.
Same here, mate. Don't worry. We've had worse experiences on this, Craig, haven't we?
We have.
I mean, Oh yeah, I've already done that joke, and Chris
We've,
already came in and did the comedian one.
what I would say in response to Dom there is I think we've got managers who share the same philosophy on how they want to play the game. And I remember very well that you basically ripped us apart in the FA Cup. I think was it the FA Cup? It was.
It was.
Yeah.
You've read my notes again. It was an FA Cup defeat back in February 2023, so not that long ago at all.
No, and Blackburn were great that night, and by all accounts, I think you'd made a lot of changes. You know, we'd made some changes as well, but the way you knocked the ball around was fantastic. So, you know, it's going to be a meeting of minds of the two managers, and you know, when it looked like we were going to change manager, Jan Dahl Thomason would have been high up on my list, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a surprise how he's not really been linked with any sort of other club, because the lack of support that we've had from the background, whether it's their fault or not, or whether it's the Indian ownership from their government, is a real surprise. And to be linked with Leicester City is the sort of right place to go. Obviously, you got the right manager now. Clearly, 21 points after 8 games is no mean feat. But yeah, you'll expect a similar sort of game, a similar sort of style from us. And we just had you in a moment where you were severely under the cosh, and in a Premier League side that didn't have much confidence, is what I'll say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. It was a different kettle of fish, wasn't it? Because that you know, Dom said that we're a Premier League side that's rebuilding itself and in the division sort of thing. It's almost like we dropped down the rank just so we could do the rebuild. That's obviously not the case. We all want to be in the Premier League, but you've talked about the last time out, which was the FA Cup win, but we have recently met. I say recently. We have recently met in the Championship. And does either of you want to take a guess at how that finished up and maybe when it was? I see the cogs turning. Countdown timer.
It would have been a season that you won it.
2013, 2012.
I'm going to say 20. I think. When did you go up? 2015.
Oh wow!
We won it 15-16. We had the Great Escape 14-15. So it's got to be 13-14 season.
Well, Craig has inevitably gave you the answer, Dom. So in a game show with no points or prizes, you go 1-0 up, Dom, because Craig went the season before. The last meeting was the 22nd of March, and it was a ball draw. Well, there was goals in it. It was 1-1. So it's not like any of us have the bragging rights from last time out, is it, in that game? Do any of you remember it? Clearly not. If you couldn't guess the season, it doesn't sound like it was the most entertaining of the game.
13-14.
Yeah, it was the 13-14 season. Craig guessed the 12-13.
I was working it out though, Brad. You were putting me on the spot, mate.
I know, but I like to just wind you up, mate. I guess has no pressure. He's not supposed to know this information. You're the Leicester fan with all these wise-out knowledges. But we talk about Premier League champions. We both are former Premier League champions. I mean, Dom, not to ageist here, but do you remember seeing Blackburn lifting the Premier League trophy, or is that a story you was told later on?
Yeah, I was born in the wrong decade. Yeah, I was born in 96, so yeah, at 27 years old, I'm not going to remember that.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Well, at least you had the memories passed on to you. I'm sure, and I bumped into a lad roughly your age earlier, and he about gave me a heart attack because he didn't know what a VHS is. But I'm sure growing up, you would have watched that season review tape, maybe, of some kind of that season.
Yeah, on repeat, absolutely on repeat. I mean, to get told it was like saying, "Oh yeah, well done. You've basically missed out on the greatest day of your footballing life, probably the next 80 years." Cool, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, just a nice sort of reminder of that. But I mean, we are both former Premier League champions, and again, Craig, I'm putting you on the spot here. You know what's coming here. When was the last time we met in the infamous Premier League?
In the Premier League, so
yes, it has been a long time, but we have played.
I remember when you guys went down, to be honest, but
yes.
Well, Think
I'm gonna
back to
say-
Nationwide. Nationwide was the Division 1 sponsor, Craig. That might give you a helping hand. That might help Dom out. I don't know. He might think that's back in the 80s. It isn't the 80s, I can tell you that part. But
It's got to be
the same
around
season. Was it
97.
the same season?
Surely we met in the 90s.
The
we
last
did,
time we
you're
met,
right.
I think, was the season you went down with Leeds and Wolves. 2003.
Dom's correct.
Right.
We did meet in the 90s, Craig. You're very right. But it was a 2004, 17th of April. And you'll be happy to know, Dom, that you have the bragging rights there. You won 1-0 at, why do I forget what your ground's called? I'm going to call it the Blackburn
Ewood Park.
Rovers. It's not. It's Ewood Park. There we go. We got there in the end. So yes, you have some standings in recent history against us. I mean,
Recent. What was 20
Look,
20 years?
yeah, I'm stretching here, Dom. All right, Craig. In recent times, we've not even been able to bring up the Premiership, have we? With certain opponents, so it's as recent as we're going to get, Dom. I'm afraid. It's coming. I mean, Dom, I don't know what you've managed to see of us this season. Obviously, you pointed out we've won 6 out of 7, top of the league, going well. We obviously have some notable Premiership quality still hanging around in the Leicester City side. Is there a key player that you've looked at or potentially heard a lot about from Leicester that you're thinking we need to make sure we put him out of the game?
Well, I mean, you could talk about the obvious ones, but I mean, the one that sort of stood out to me that I didn't realise who he had such a good start was Casey McAteer. I'd never heard of him before this season. So for him to have 5 goals in 8 games is an immense stat at such a young age, and with momentum, which is such a key attribute for such a young age as well. I mean, 21 years old isn't that young right now, I suppose, in the sort of FIFA generation. But that is a worrying stat and someone that I could see causing us issues.
Yeah, I mean, Craig, just to touch on there what Dom said about McAteer. I mean, we've been very good with youth products over the last few years. We've had a fair few come through the system. Another one we've struck lucky on again. McAteer scored in the midweek against Liverpool. We don't talk about the rest of the game, but he's proven that he's proven Enzo right to back the youth, isn't he, Craig?
Yeah, I've got to say, I'm surprised. He played, a few games last season. Over the past couple of seasons, I think he's played in a couple of cup games. Didn't really impress, but had a couple of loans where he's clearly toughened up a bit. And I think he's playing with more confidence now. I don't think we've seen a really top-notch performance from him. What I would say is he looks like he's a decent finisher. From the goals he has scored, he has a nose for a goal. I mean, the run he made and then the sort of 2-touch finish for the goal against Southampton was fantastic. To see that space open up and just charge into it, take it with his right and just slot it with his left. And really composed last night at Anfield as well, running in towards the Kop, unopposed. A lot of players would have panicked in that situation and he just rolled it in. So I think he's got an old head on his shoulders. He doesn't mind the battle as well. So I think the more he's played, I think he's getting better and better, but we've still not seen I wouldn't even say we've seen a strong half from him yet. There's definitely more to come.
No, that's very true. And that's a great thing, isn't it? When he's on that sort of form and we've not really seen him at full tempo, it's just something that's nice to see. He seems to me like he reminds me a little bit as if he's got the footballing brain of Mahrez, but he's got all the pace of maybe Harvey Barnes without the laziness with Barnes, I guess. He seems a good mix on that right side. I mean, McAteer is obviously Leicester's standout player. But if there's any player that Leicester fans, when they make the travel down to Ewood Park, should look out for, is who's the big danger man you've seen so far from your guys, Dom?
Yeah, I mean, to compare someone to Mahrez and Barnes is mental.
I meant early days, okay? I wasn't going too drastic. I meant early lifespan.
I mean, there's two that stand out really. One you may have heard of was obviously Adam Wharton, a player that's come through similar age as McAteer, think he's only 18 actually. One that's been linked with plenty of Premier League sides, and one that will be an England international. I'm sure of it at some point. He's unbelievably composed on the ball. You watch him, and you just automatically become calm. He's like a drug watching him sometimes. Another one I would say on the left wing, it's Sigurdsson, one that you might not have heard of. We bought him in the summer because of stuff going on in Russia. We've been able to get him on loan, and then for a free in the next season. Scored 2 in 2, only played 105 minutes so far, and looks at a level above, a cut above. His fitness might not be there, so he might come off in the 70th minute, but other than that, looks like a Premier League star, and one that we hope we can secure into next season as well.
Dom, tell me, tell me about Samar. Is it Samarchik? Smarlik, whatever. Sammy.
Oh, Smodics. Yeah, he's busy, is what I'd say. He is. He's a very nippy player. He scored 5 goals so far this season. He's grown into himself this season as a bit of a leader. One that we needed as well, having such a young squad. I believe the oldest is younger than myself, so that shows how young he is. The team is in general. One that filled the Dax role in a system that we needed to. It seems to be an improvement on Bradley Dack. One that has 2 knees, especially, which helps. And one that will be playing as a sort of, if he's not playing up front, it'll be just in behind. I think that the issue we've got right now is we're struggling for height, so you might be okay at the back in terms of that, but with Wharton, Sigurdsson, and Schmodics, like you say, obviously, those are very good attacking.
Yeah, he scored in the cup, I think, and I work with a guy who is is kind of a part-time Peterborough fan, part-time Man United fan, depending on who's winning. So at the minute, it's usually Peterborough, and he was telling me, because I'm sure he came from Peterborough. He was telling me how good he was at Peterborough, and he expects him to be a Premier League player. Now, I don't know if you see him more than I do, but I haven't seen enough of him. It's whether he's got the potential, but also the sort of character to be able to do it.
I think he has the character. I'm not too sure about. His confidence could rise him to the Premier League for a season or two. I don't think he could be a complete stay in he's a very high championship player, but confidence, and if he has a lot of players, like say if he was in the Leicester team, he would definitely be in the Premier League. But with us, I'm too unsure at the minute. But this season, he's shown himself as, he's backed himself essentially. So yeah, completely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game that's filled with the highest potential. I know, Dom, you said earlier it could be 5-1, it could be 3-3, it could be a classic game, which obviously typically is going to put the mockers on it for a 0-0, isn't it? You know that's bound to happen now. Dom,
playing the long game.
No, he is. He's playing the mind games. I like this. Dom, I appreciate that you've obviously got to go because you've got your own preview to do for your own channel. So I'm just going to quickly kind of go through a little bit of a quiz thing for you. I told you about this at the start. Craig knows all about it as well. So, and then I'll get a score prediction off you, let everybody know where you are, and we can let you go so you can get yourself a bit rested before you do yours. So I'll start with you first. Dom, a little bit of fun. I try and do this to make you feel a bit better about yourselves if you've not done too well against us. Can you tell me the last time that Blackburn completed a league double over Leicester? Just need the season. You can have a guess. There's nothing for getting it wrong or right, but you just get pride if you do.
Well, it's clearly not that 2003 season, whatever that was. I'm going to say 2000. Oh God, this might be 90s now. I'm going to say 97.
He's going 97. Well, you're right to go to 90s. Just. It was the 1990-1991 season. You beat us 4-1 at Ewood Park on the 18th of September, and then you beat us 3-1 on the 26th of January at what was Filbert Street. Craig, he didn't get it, but can you figure out for us when Leicester lasted a league double over Blackburn Rovers?
when you say I didn't get it, I didn't get a chance to answer.
Yeah, I know, but I knew you wouldn't get it, mate. I just knew you wouldn't get it. You didn't get it.
I was in the right ballpark. I would have been a couple of seasons later, I think, on that. Last time we did the league double over Blackburn. 2001-2.
Well, all I'm going to say to you here, Craig, is I don't have the bell end button to press, but if I did, I would be, because if this was like Bruce's Price is Right and the closest one gets it for who got closest to their season, Dom would have got it, because Craig, we did the double over them the season afterwards in 91-92, winning 3-0 at Filbert Street and 1-0 at Ewood Park on the 21st of September and the 18th of April, respectively. Now
Nice. Then, was that the season we played?
Yeah, we don't talk about that. That was just friendly.
Oh, sorry. We don't
talk about that playoff. No, that's banned on here, Dom. You can rewatch that all over again yourself. That was a very hard to take friendly against us, and I think we took a player off you after that, didn't we? But it is a little bit of fun. Again, no points, no prizes here. But as I told you, Dom, this would come up. I'm going to do a shameless plug to give you a chance to both think about it. But collectively, this is all cup competition, so League Cup, FA Cup, league games. How many times have the two sides met? Now, don't give me your answer just yet. Think about it as I become a shameless plug.
Leicester Till I Die podcasts on the Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google, Anchor, and all podcast platforms.
Something is coming. Something big to this podcast.
Hello, Chris.
The TalkSport Fan Network is the ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts,
including Leicester Till I Die, independent analysis and reaction for the Foxes faithful.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
Unbeatable club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Follow the podcast on the TalkSport Fan Network.
So you've had time to think about it. A little fact here from Paul. He says the Blackburn game at Filbert Street on January 26, 1991 was David Pleat's last game as Leicester manager. He was sacked 3 days later. So that's something interesting to add to that stat. So not only will we beat him, but we kick Pleat out days. So guys, I like to leave Craig hanging. And we always have to go for the better looking ones, but I already know the answer. So I'm going to have to ask Dom. Dom, how many times do you reckon we've met in all competitions?
I'm going to say 210 times.
210 now. You know the Bruce. 210 times. You know the Bruce's Price is Right moment. If you Craig, you can be one game over, but you can't be one game. You can be one game under, but you can't be one game over in terms of beating Dom to this one. What's your guess?
Right, okay.
Well, I'm pretty confident that Dom's over. So just to win the point, I could say 2, but I won't do that. I won't do that.
At least 2.
I'm gonna say, yeah. I'll nudge it up a little bit from my original thought. I'm gonna say 103.
Well, Craig, you know how I said earlier. I don't know if you read the rules and regulations of Bruce's Price is Right, but you can be one under, you can't be one over.
Don't tell me it was. I was gonna say 97. So don't tell me now I've nudged it too far.
Okay, then you've propelled it too far.
Right.
Because Sunday, the 2 o'clock kickoff on Sunday will officially be Leicester and Blackburn's 100th meeting in all competition. We have played 99 times with 35 wins to the Foxes, 25 draws, and 39 wins to Blackburn Rovers. So you do hold us in the overall head-to-head. So you've got something to take away from this show, if nothing else, Dom, because clearly I brought in a wise alpha with no knowledge on this fixture. Dom, I appreciate you've got to go and get ready for yours. So just quickly, I would normally take people out doing it, but I'm operating on the phone. Give us your score prediction and give yourself a massive shout out to tell everybody where they can find you, and obviously go and show them support, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me as well. My actual Twitter account is Dom_Meadowcroft. Obviously, I'm part of the Rovers Shack people. I've got my own YouTube, Dom Medical, so if you want to go and follow that, it's not just Blackburn, it's every team. But I'm going to predict. Why not? I'm going to predict a 2-0 win because I always predict 2-0 wins. So you got to be positive about it, even though my brain probably doesn't say that scoreline.
Always go with your heart, Dom. Always go with your heart. We've had people on here say Leicester would win it, and we've had people sit on the fence. So it's nice refreshing to have someone back their own team on here for once. Yeah, Dom, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate that you've got to head off and go. Good after Sunday, because I can't wish you good luck because I'll be lying through my teeth. After Sunday's game, good luck for your rest of the season, mate.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and I hope you have a good season. See you all soon. Cheers, guys. Peace.
Cheers, Dom. Thanks for coming on. So, Craig, now I've lost the experience, man, because, I mean, you got beat on the random quiz 2-0 because you went over. Can I at least get your scoreline predictions and you get that right? Because you do better than that than me. I'll say nothing else about it.
I can't believe I changed. I had 97, 98 in my head, and then I just thought, no, I'm going to nudge it up. Stupid.
No, the worst thing you can do is nudge it up.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, you got beat by Scott. Now, I don't know how you're going to take that. Whether you take that as a compliment or an insult with Scott, because he would have won with 59 because he didn't go over. But what's your score predictions? I know you're part of the prediction league. That show is coming tomorrow night. Yeah, just good reminder because there is a game Friday at 8 p.m. So anyone who hasn't got them in, if you don't get your 8 o'clock in by 8, it won't count. So you'd be good if you get it right. But you can change your mind.
I think it's going to be a tight one. This, I think it's going to be tough, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's a draw. But I'm gonna say 2-1 to us. Just edge it.
So you couldn't even say that with any conviction. See how he goes draw, but then slide to the 2. I don't know what to do with you. What am I going to do with you? But at least you're here, and you keep the rest of us entertained, Craig. Because if they have to put up looking at my face all the time, be screaming and leaving. Scott, he's gone 3-0. So he's feeling brave. I've gone 3-1. Whether I've done that in the predictions or not, I don't even know if I've even done mine. So I'll be losing points. Not really matter.
You go 3-1 every game, though, don't you?
Oh no, I went 2-2. The one time I could have got a point for maybe getting 3-1, I went 2-2. So just banned myself from going for it for a while. But not that it matters. I'm the world's strongest man in that division. But we won't talk about that. That's for tomorrow's show. Moving on, we come to the best part of the show because Craig gets to pretend he's Enzo with hair, which is yeah, look at that, yeah, it's stroke the boldness part of it there. We've got your team in. Well, you're probably going to tell me it's wrong because I think I edited it and I'm not sure if I've saved it. But Craig gets to pick his lineup. What has he gone for? Has he made 8 changes? Is Iheanacho back in the lineup? Is Stolarczyk staying in goal after his cup performance? Well, no, he's not. But you have stuck with the 4-3-3. It does say Bristol City there. I know. I told you my editing doing it right. It was supposed to say Blackburn Rovers. Ignore that. It's like the Wizard and the Wizard of Oz. Ignore the man behind the curtains. This is Craig's Blackburn side. And apart from an obvious injury, copy and paste, Craig, isn't it?
Pretty much, to be honest. Yeah, I wasn't sure on the defensive lineup as to whether to leave JJ back there as a filling in for Doyle, because I thought he did really well when he came on for the second half against Bristol City. I thought he played really well, and he offered a bit more pace there. But I've just gone. I've put Cody in there, and I've moved JJ forward in place of KDH, only because we tend to play as a 3. You know, it's 4-4, it's 4-3-3. But at the end of it, Ricardo steps into midfield nearly all of the time, which makes it a 3.
Yeah,
Cody's a lot more comfortable playing in a 3. Ideally, he would be in the middle of a 3, but he's not good enough with the ball. I think that's safe to say. So Vestergaard will still be the guy that Hermansen tries to find and play the ball.
Well, I was just about to say, I'm not sure if you're still watching, but you've mentioned it. So this is for you, Chris.
Yeah, so I've put Cody in. Not ideal, I know he's not ideal on the left, so him and Fast may switch, but I think Vestergaard will be. I think he's earned his right to be the middle of that three as it becomes when Ricardo steps forward. And I just thought JJ would give us a little bit more pace, a bit more of a willingness to move the ball quicker. Run with it. He likes to. If he sees a gap, he will go. KDH does sometimes, but it depends what his mindset's in. KDH, he's been very frustrating this season. Sometimes there was a couple of times in the Bristol City game where the ball was played to him. He didn't even look whether there was any play ahead of him. He didn't even turn around. He hadn't had a glance over his shoulder to see whether he could turn. He just went backwards. But I think JJ tends to play with the game in front of him, coming onto the ball a lot more, and I think that may suit us, because I think, as Dom alluded to there, our best opportunity is going to be hitting them on the break. So if you've got players a little bit further forward who have more pace, then I think that would work well, and I think JJ in that role will probably help us.
Yeah, I mean, he does offer us that there. I mean, I know, again, apologies, I did type it in, but the editor, I didn't press keep, and it's reverted back to it. So your back line is Ricardo, Vestergaard, Cody and JJ, correct? Just to
that's all right, apart from I've got JJ in. No, I've got JJ in for KDH.
KDH, that's where I've gone wrong. So the back line's got phase in there. Yeah, I mean, he does offer something a bit more diverse. You could say KDH has gone off a little bit of the boil. He's been outshone by McAteer in that midfield area, and at winger, but his midfield area of the role he plays. And that brings us into that midfield nicely. And you've got a new man in JJ there, but we'll talk more about Wilfred Ndidi because he's a man possessed. At the moment, the only surprise was he didn't find himself a customary Carabao Cup goal against Liverpool, but we lived a charmed life. But making his way in that middle, he's becoming a mainstay. And I've got a couple of questions for you at the end, which I'll hold on to it. But just talk about it. I mean, did you before the season started? If you was told, Craig, first 8 to 10 games of the season, Ndidi and Winks are going to hold that role down in that middle park and play like a storm, would you have believed them with what we saw of Ndidi last season?
I don't think anybody would have believed it, would they? What I would say is, and I'm not sure whether it's by luck or whether Maresca is a genius. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. But I was thinking about this, and I was chatting to Scott about it. With the modern game, where teams like to press, and they like to press high and try and win the ball back as high up the pitch as possible, surely it makes no sense for you to have your ball winners sitting in front of your own back four. So maybe take one of those ball winners, move him forward to try and win the ball back early. And it wouldn't surprise me if this becomes a thing. Rather than waiting to win the ball back when the opposition are attacking you and you just nip it off them and then go, why not put your destroyer further up the pitch to try and press and win the ball back at that end? And I think we've seen that in a couple of games where Wilf has been able to do that. He has been able to read the game and nick the ball a few times and block some passes coming through. So maybe it's a stroke of genius. Maybe it's a happy accident, but I can see it being something that may come in vogue, to be honest. Put your ball winner higher up the pitch rather than waiting until a team's attacking against you.
Well, it's certainly paying dividends, whether it's a stroke of genius or a stroke of luck. Bit of both, maybe, like you said, Craig. It's certainly working so far. So we obviously we're forced into making a change when I asked you to do this because of Dawn at the back. You've made a change in midfield. But the more things change, the more they stay the same, because you've gone for the same three that you have done for the past few weeks when we've been able to do this. Craig, you've gone McAteer, the top goal scorer of the club right now. No surprises there. Mavididi on the left, and you've gone for the old-timer Jamie Vardy to start against Blackburn. no Iheanacho, no potential of Fatawu and putting McAteer on the left side. Didn't think that through. Didn't think about that. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought of all that. I mean, I liked Fatawu. You know, I think he did really well against Bristol City. But I think, particularly young players, I think you play them until they need a rest. If they're doing well, if they've got momentum, if they've got confidence, play them. You know, McAteer is playing with confidence. So I think if you dipping him in and out the game, in and out, you know, he plays 1 week, he doesn't the next. I'm not sure that helps him. For me, it'll be just play, give it everything. We'll take you off at 60, 65 minutes or whatever, and we've got a strong bench to be able to do that. So that's why I've given him that. He's clearly playing with a lot of confidence, and particularly away from home. As I say, you know, he did it last night. But I was really impressed. I know I mentioned it earlier, but that run he made against Southampton to read the game, read the ball that KDH eventually played, to realise there was a gap there that he went and attacked. He didn't just go out wide and hope the ball would, you know, get out to him out there. He saw where he could be dangerous and he made the run into the penalty box. And I was really impressed with that. So I think he's got a bit of a goal scorer's instinct. The one earlier in the season where he popped up at the back post, I know he's missed a couple from there as well. But for me, he deserves his spot. And while he's playing well and he's scoring goals, then you just keep him in. Iheanacho has just been a little bit disappointing for me in terms of his ball retention. I think he's good when it's higher up. If you're up against a team who's putting you under a bit more pressure, and I expect us to be under pressure at Blackburn, then when the ball's played up to him, he's got to be holding it. It can't be coming back all the time. Otherwise, you get no respite at all. And if he's not doing that, then you might as well be looking to have somebody who's got more pace, because that means that the back line has to drop off a little more and therefore give your midfielders more room to play. So that's why I've stuck with Vardy.
Yeah, well, as much as, you know, Nacho is my favourite love child at the moment, I can't help but agree. And it's probably a game where he might be better off benefiting coming off of the bench if Leicester can find themselves in front. You know, we're very good away from home this season. You know, if he then comes on and holds that ball up, or he takes the sting out of an attack, and then Blackburn get all their men back and then realise Leicester are slowly building, you know, drag them out slowly, kill the time, it's not the worst option to give. But Craig, leading perfectly into the questions, we come to that part now where I'm going to try and get a few springing questions off you. And obviously, this one, I mentioned him earlier, but this one comes with a little bit of breaking news. I was meant to use the more serious breaking news because this isn't a laughing matter, although it may be for those who thought that certain players would jump ship and go. Hamza Chowdhury, the man who, for one game under a certain bellend, was the next, what was his name? Javier Mascherano, according to him, and then never played again. The club instinctively acted an extension onto his contract so he wouldn't go for nothing in the summer. One of the potential six that was looking for a way out before Enzo signs a new deal. First of all, I'm going to get your opinions on that, Craig. How happy are you that Hamza's not only found a new lease of life under Enzo in the Championship, but he's already committing his long-term future to the club?
I'm happy on both counts. You know, I'm happy that he's getting some game time. I don't think he's a regular starter. I'm happy he's signed a new contract, just because it means even if we sell him, we get some money, and that's the important thing. We've had far too many players run the contracts down and gone for nothing, even if they're, you know, at this level. I mean, he's not going to be worth loads and loads unless he has a storming season. But even if he's between 8 to 10 million, you know, you're going to get a fee for him. I think this is his level, if I'm honest. I'm not sure he's a Premier League standard player. He can come in and be a good squad player in the Premier League. But I think ideally this is his level, and there will be games where we just need to dig in. And obviously, we all know his attributes. His pitch coverage is fantastic. He's a real athlete. He doesn't mind putting his foot in, and I think he can play it. When he's given the opportunity to. So for this squad and making sure that this is a group that's going to stick together for the rest of the season, and I think that's important because we know there's going to be, unless there are other contracts going to be signed over the next few weeks, we know that it won't be far until we're back in the January transfer window and all these questions start again. So I would hope and I would imagine that the club are working at the moment to try and make sure that this group of players is under contract for the next 18 months at least.
Sorry, Craig. I'm just looking for the cameras in my house that you clearly put up here because great minds can collide. Because that is the question I'm going to lead you on to. Now, normally I try and save the best till last, but I'm so eager to talk about him. I want to talk about exactly what you just mentioned there. Talk about two people, most notably. What do you reckon the odds are that this man decides to extend his contract?
Two things.
I mean, don't ask me because I want to sign a lifetime contract because I love him that much. But playing a bit more, Enzo seems to be a bit more patient, I will say, to give him that chance to shine and get in there. You talk about it's a whole different ball game, kettle of fish in December, closing on January. But right now, is he a player that you're looking at on Leicester's books going, yeah, we need to tie him down. He needs to commit to us more than we commit to him in a sense.
It's a tricky one. I think you've got to think of what the players are going to want to do as well. So there's him, and Ndidi is the other one who's
save Ndidi's the last.
But they're both. You've got to talk about them in the same way.
Well, I'll tell you what. Then it saves me asking that question. I'm going to mention Ndidi. Include that in your ramblings. Freedom of speech, mate. Go for it. I'll let you have the floor.
Yeah, I think the thinking is the same on both of them. For me, I don't think either of them are going to commit long term, because they both want to be playing at a high level. So I think your best chance is to get them to both sign a year's extension, which basically gives us 18 months of them. If we stay and if we get up, then we can go back again with maybe a longer extension. If they don't, it means they've got a year left on the contract. We'll get a fee for them rather than them walking away. I think that suits both parties for me. It gives them the opportunity to go and play at a high level because, especially if they both have really good seasons here, they're not going to want to stay around in the Championship. And don't forget, they're going to go off to the African Cup of Nations where they could both have storming, competitions, and then the value of them goes up and they're going to walk away for nothing. So I think it's really important from a club's perspective that they at least get them to sign a year's extension.
Yeah, that's very true. Could Leicester, though, not essentially then just turn around to both of them and say, okay, maybe not like a 3-year deal, but could they not, just to give that extra bit of reassurance, go, here's a 2-year deal, sign it now, because not only are you going away at the most people's part of our season to go represent your country in a major tournament, we're not disparaging that or anything of that for any reason, but before you go away, on your international for your African Cup of Nations tournament, sign a 2-year contract, and if this doesn't go the way it's looking like it's going, you have a non-promotion relief clause. So Leicester could argue, okay, we value and I'm spitballing numbers here. We value Wilfred Ndidi as in a Championship. We reckon we could probably get 15 million for him. And I think that's a fair sum to ask in the Championship, the quality he's offering. You look at what we sold Barnes and Madison for, and if you said Ian Actor was about that 8 to 10 million bracket, if they had that as their non-promotion clauses, would it not be more beneficial for 2-year? Because then Leicester, I know we had the whole relegation release clause in the title winning season, but we never expect to do that. Because then you have something that takes itself out of the equation if you go up, and then you've got more breathing space, because otherwise we get promoted, they've already got 12 months on the contract. Teams will then yet again try and wait for January.
Yeah. No, I as I said, I think I agree. That's why I said at least a 1 year. But you got to get them tied down. Yeah, a 2 year. I don't think either of them would sign a 3. So between the two, if you can get them on a 2 year, definitely. But with a release clause in if we don't get promoted. I think it's really important that they go away to the African Cup of Nations with their future sorted out. Because to be honest, if they do well in the African Cup of Nations, 2 things are going to happen. One is their value will go up, but 2, they'll probably be knackered. So when they come back, they're not going to be, probably giving their best for the next 2-3 weeks anyway. And you're into January, we'll have had to have found other players to fill the gap. You might as well say, if they're not going to sign it, you let them go in January. Because you're not going to get that much of the season left out of them anyway by the time they come back if they do well. So it's a really tricky one. And this is where, the people have got to earn their money in terms of getting these deals signed. I'm surprised there was no talk that there were any contract negotiations going on. So the Hamilton one has come out of the blue. It's not like he's been regularly playing.
No. Well,
that just shows me that there are conversations already going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Now, I did hear a few whispers that after the transfer window closed, that conversation between the Iheanacho representatives and Leicester had began. And we know these things can get drawn out because the agents want this. They want the best for their players. Not all agents are bad people, but they want the best. These one and players, like you said, they've got no, especially these players like Ndidi and Iheanacho, have no connection to Leicester in terms of they're not youth players, they're not Leicester fans, born and bred. None of that like certain players like McAteer and Chowdhury might have. It has a bit of sentiment that can hold to why they want to stay and play for the club longer than others. But they've got to have, like you said, they've got to look after themselves. And if there's an option that they go and overcommit, do a Harry Kane, if you will, you might get lumbered at a squad. And then all of a sudden you sign a 4-year deal, but Leicester don't get promoted for 2 seasons. You're then stuck playing in the Championship, whether you like it or not. And okay, you could get brought in that time, but then you might find your career stagnated because you fall out with the manager, you get benched. You want to move, so you don't play. You do a French Voldemort honours. I'm not saying these guys would ever do that, but it can get to that stage. So I think it's something that doesn't concern us right now, but it's like our transfer activity, isn't it, Craig? We want to get it out of the way and done. So we as fans know, and I suppose Enzo himself would like to know, because it's all well and good Ndidi and that playing well, but if they're not going to commit, you find it hard to find a way into the squad for them. You have to kind of go, well, if you're not going to commit, like you said, come February or March when they're only just recovering, do we really want to be putting our trust in players that are looking at, I don't know, Aston Villas of the world? Maybe not.
Yeah, particularly, they've both been linked with moves overseas as well. And come January, they can start having those negotiations with clubs overseas. They can sign preliminary contracts with them in January. So, The other thing that we don't want to do, though, is give them long contracts on a lot of money, because if we need to do a little bit more either way, whether we're down in the Championship still or we get promoted, we're going to need to revamp, refresh. And if you've got players sitting around on contracts earning big money, then your ability to sort of wheel and deal a little bit, goes out. So it's a really tricky balancing act that the people behind the scenes have got at the moment. But I think it will come down to, one, whether they feel like this is their home. And Kelechi did an interview the other day that I saw today where he was saying he loves life in Leicester. He loves it. It is his home. And Wilf is playing with a smile on his face again. So Maresca's turned them round, definitely.
Yeah.
It's whether they feel like, they can commit to him, because it looks like he wants to commit to them.
Yes.
And I think he's playing a big part in this. The other thing is that you need to be aware of is, even if we don't get up this season, there are going to be clubs looking at Maresca.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
So
and that
true.
is a big thing as well. Now, obviously, he is under contract, and I would hope he's going to, you know, see this through. And he's come in saying all the right things, that he doesn't think this is a 1-year project. This is a 2, 3, 4, 5-year project. But, you know, there will be people, there will be clubs, and a lot of those clubs will be overseas, who will look at how he started the season in his first managerial job. So I think it's really important that, you know, that we are aware of the fact that we're going to have to fend off advances for him as well if we don't get promoted.
Yeah, very true. I think, you know, the club have tried over the years since the owners have come in. I mean, they had a little bit of a Watford-itis at the start. If you remember, when they first came in, there was a few managers gone before they had a chance to turn the fortunes around. But it feels like Leicester have always made a move in the manager department with a purpose. Well, regardless of how it ended with Brendan, he brought us great success. We can't deny that. And it wasn't off the back of anything like people try and say with Ranieri's success. You know, and obviously it ended sourly. We're all forever going to hate that for him. But he came with the idea from Celtic. It was a 5-year plan. Enzo made that announcement. So you're hoping these players can kind of go, if like you said, Iheanacho, for example, is saying, I love Leicester, I want to be here. If this can work out, hopefully we'll have a breaking news show announcing that contract. I personally would love it myself. Craig, we're just about done here. I've managed to out-talk you all again for it. Just a couple of quick questions from Scott, not from me. I'm not testing your brain here. I'm going to answer this one first and then pass it over to you. He's asked, with Tom Cameron coming in with a back injury, do you see him playing this season? Now, obviously, we know the Carabao Cup game, and I'll quickly mention the other one. But Daka played. Didn't really do anything. I forgot he played, I'll be honest with you. We knew he came with an injury. All that aside, I don't need to go down into that depth. I've already bored Chris and Dave to death when I answered the question on Monday night. But do you see him playing at all? Because obviously, like you said, Iheanacho will be gone when he's going to be back fit in training and potentially ready. What do you think? Do you think?
I mean, all you can say is, I mean, I don't think any of us are clear on how bad the injury is or what the injury is. And
it's a back strain. It's the same thing as what Dennis Pratt's suffering with.
So whether it's, you know, this could be, you know, it could be a bench injury. You know, if it's bad back, you know, they've both spent so much time sitting on a bench. Well, maybe they need to just play football a little bit more.
Maybe.
But I would hope so. Is all that, you know, without being a sort of chiropractor or knowing the ins and outs of how bad back injuries are, I would hope we would see him, and it would be great that if he was getting somewhere near fitness by the turn of the year, so Enzo does have his options when Iheanacho goes. But I mean, he didn't sound overly hopeful, I must admit, when he was talking about it. But I would expect we would see him. You know, if you are signing players and you know they've got an injury, you must have an idea of how treatable that injury is. And I can't believe there would be anyone thinking that they weren't going to appear all season.
Definitely. I mean, I won't bore everybody with the segment again, but if you do want to know why potentially Leicester took the risk with Tom Cannon, Monday night show that we did, it was me, Dave, and Chris. Go and check that video out. It's about the injury thing. I was given the floor and then to finish a chapter or two of the book by the time I got through it all. But that might help you understand a bit more why players can be or are signed injured. And last question from Scott before I let you plug your socials and let you go, mate, and we end things here. Look, I love Michael Brighton, but I don't see, this is one player I don't see getting a contract extension. I just don't. I love Kevin to bits. He's 100% through and through. You know, not a Leicester born and bred by any means, a Villa youth. Obviously, we've stolen him from them. They were fuming. Love him to bits. He'll go down in the memory long term. But you say about Chowdhury being a championship player, he's getting bit parts here and there, all Brighton as it is, and we're in the championship. I just don't see somebody who left us on loan last season because, although he didn't want to, he wanted to keep playing football for as long as he can. I just don't see why he gets a contract extension ahead of others. I think we're past the parcel on favourites getting contracts for the sake of it. What do you think? Maybe I'm wrong.
You know what? Even if we offered him one, I don't think he would sign it, because if someone's come out and said that they want to be playing, and they're clearly not playing, and there's younger, quicker, faster, fitter players in front of them, he must know that his game time is going to be severely limited. Unless he's got an idea that he's already doing his coaching badges and it may be a good idea to stick around because he may get a coaching opportunity. But if he wants to play, I would think that I wouldn't be surprised at all if he went in January, to be honest.
No, I wouldn't. And it's sad. We like these players to come around and be back, here in some capacity. And the annoying thing is, just as you mentioned the coaching badges, I remember I was like, oh, I saw an article yesterday about a player who said he'd like to come back to Leicester through the coaching system. And it was, and my brain went, well, top name, Brad. So I can't even make that comparison. But if someone maybe knows it, right? It might have been Andy King. It might have been Andy King that said it. You might be right. I think it might have been a Bristol City report where he said at some point he'd like to come back to Leicester to the coaching ranks. But as all good things, mate, just like today, this show, it has to come to an end. Craig, thank you very much as always for being the wise owl and I would say the factor of all knowledge, but you got beat by a guest in the mini quiz I like to do for you all. But let everybody know where they can find you on the socials, mate.
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter. I don't tweet a lot, but I do chip in occasionally with some inane drivel. So just at Craig Bird on Twitter.
Well, there you go. He's playing by name, playing by nature. Just at Craig Bird is where you can find him on Twitter. Craig, thanks very much for joining us. Are you going to the game, actually, I should ask?
No, I'm not. No, I've got a busy weekend, so I have been up there once, and it was quite bleak at the time. I remember, but no, not on this one.
Well, you can be an armchair manager like me and Chris, mate. Yeah. We can all sing our praises. Hopefully, get 3 points. Craig, thanks for joining us. Everybody in the comments, thanks for coming on, and of course, thank you to our guest Dom, who came in from at Rovers chat. Go and check out our guest channel. All his links are in the description down below. And until next time, which will be tomorrow with my lovely face and hopefully Steve for a Prediction League show, we will see you tomorrow at 7. And until then, as always, come on, you foxes.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network.
TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.